I've noticed that some of the most profound spiritual teachings are stated in a way that seems absurdly simple. In this area that I have been struggling with for all my life, this self-liberation, this liberation of the best of my DNA and my dreams to be what is possible for me to be, I have struggled to find the answer to how to persevere in that, how to self-liberate, how to free myself of whatever it is that holds me back. And the spiritual teachings, the most profound spiritual thinkers, are all in agreement on the simple but profound answer. For self-liberation, let go of fear, let go of despair, let go of pride, be fully present to life, and keep the channel open. Simple, isn't it? So this, it seems to me, is the difficulty with profound spiritual teachings. They are stated so simply, they almost seem like a cliche. So let go of that fear, let go of that despair, let go of that false pride, and open my heart to life. So I've done a lot of thinking about what exactly I have to do to be able to let go of all those things and be fully present to life. So has Terry Dobson. Terry Dobson was a 20th century American Aikido master who really began to understand the profound spiritual lessons of this martial art. It's a Japanese martial art that teaches how, when attacked, to deflect the attacker's force so that it's not necessarily a counterattack or a harming of the attacker, but a deflection of the attack. And when he was a young man, Terry Dobson went to Japan to study this martial art and learn it more deeply. And he understood his Aikido master's teaching, which was never to fight, never to fight. This was at best for self-defense, but really it was about deflecting attacks. And as a young man who knew his skill level, he was proud of the fact that he often avoided fights when when the possibility arose. He didn't seek them out, but he found ways to disengage and not use his martial arts skills just because he could. But there was one day when he was on a train in Tokyo, and he was sitting there with others on the train, and the train stopped and the doors opened, and onto the train came a big, strong man who was very drunk and very aggressive and angry. And in the first moments of this man entering the train, he waved his arm and tried to hit some of the people on the train, and he tried to kick an elderly woman who scurried away just ahead of his foot, and he banged into a young woman with a baby. It was amazing that they weren't hurt. And the young woman also fled to the back of the train. And this is when Terry thought, I'm going to have to intervene. I have the training. These innocents who are at risk do not. And I'm going to have to. This is one time when I really must fight. And just as he was standing up, there came the voice of a small, frail-looking, elderly Japanese man who was also sitting on the train. Hey, the man said, hey, come here. And he was speaking not to Terry, but to the angry man, the drunken, abusive, aggressive man. Come here, the man said, and sit down beside me and talk to me. And this was unexpected, to say the least. And the angry man looked at him and lumbered over, and it seemed for a moment that there would be a threat. "Why should I talk to you?" the man demanded. And the Japanese man said, "What you been drinking?" This was a little disconcerting, and the angry man said, "Sake." "Oh," the elderly man said, "that's wonderful." And he began to talk cheerfully about how much he loved to drink sake in the evenings with his wife, about how they'd sit out in the garden every evening and enjoy the air and enjoy the garden and enjoy the sake. And he said, "I have a wonderful wife." And he added, "I'm sure you have a wonderful wife too." And the angry man answered, "No, she died last year." And then he continued on in a different tone of voice, saying that his wife had died and he'd lost his job and he lost his home and he had no money and he had nowhere to go. The elderly man, in the same tone of still cheerful friendliness, said, my, that is a very difficult predicament indeed. Sit down here." He patted the seat. "Sit down here and tell me about it." And the man sat down. And Terry's stop was the next stop. It wasn't very far away. It was just a short amount of time later that the doors opened and Terry knew it was safe to get off the train, that everyone was going to be okay, because he saw that the once angry man, now the sad man, was sitting next to the elderly man with his head in the elderly man's lap, sobbing as the elderly man patted him on the back. Who was the Aikido master there? It wasn't Terry, who with his sense of pride in his skills was going to the defense of innocent people, surely a good intention. But it was the elderly man who cheerfully saw the spirit, the humanity of the angry man, and invited him into conversation, invited him into relationship, invited him back into life. Dobson spent the rest of his life understanding but not being able to fully actualize the nature of the call to be fully present to other human beings. He understood from that moment that his was not the real Aikido, but the elderly man was the real Aikido master. That we have this ability to connect with other people, and by our relationship with them, to make the world better. And it isn't about fighting or destroying or crushing other people. It's about inviting them into relationship. So he worked on this for the rest of his life. This was his goal, to become an Aikido master the way the elderly Japanese man was an Aikido master. So when I think of this story, I think how much I would like to be like that elderly man. That while I recognize that sometimes there is absolutely a need for people with skills and courage to stand between a danger and the innocent people who are at risk, I would love to transcend wherever I am now on my journey and be the kind of person who is able to see the light in another human being and call out to it and bring them into relationship and deflect the risk of harm through that kind of connection. So, let go of fear. That elderly man, that true Aikido master, was not afraid. He was not afraid of the angry drunk on the train. He had let go of despair. He wasn't in despair. He was living in a place of confidence and trust that the world was a good place and people were good people. And he had let go of false pride. This elderly man, this frail man on the train, didn't have the kind of strength or skill necessarily. We don't really know what his training was, but he wasn't in a position to get in a fight with this guy. And I don't think he had the sense that what he was about to do was in some manipulative fashion that he could be prideful about, going to save the day. It seems to me that this man's action is a perfect illustration of how to let go of fear, let go of despair, let go of false pride, by instead being fully present to another human being. Being fully present to life by being fully present to another person. So this, it seems to me, is the positive goal, to liberate the self from all that holds us back, to try to be fully present to others and to life. And that bad dog feeling, I call it the bad dog feeling. When we think about letting go of fear and despair and false pride, often what the mechanism is of that is this bad dog feeling. So this is like when I make a mistake, or I realize that I was supposed to have done something and I forgot. And I feel like I've been a bad dog. It's like as if someone, the person I forgot to send a message to, the phone call I forgot to return, as if they're going to come and say to me, "You are a bad dog." And that actually almost never happens. But I don't need for somebody else to tell me I'm a bad dog, because I can do that for myself. And oh, how sad it is when that happens, because I need to let go of the fear that someone's going to be mad at me. I need to let go of the despair that there are so many tasks that I haven't been able to complete, because there always are. And I need to let go of the false pride that says, I must feel like a bad dog when I forget something or overlook something or make a mistake, because I'm perfect. So I never make mistakes and I never forget things. And then if I do, wow, I must really be a bad dog. This sense of false pride is what actually can lead us to despair and lead us to fear. Because if we expect so much of ourselves, if we expect so much perfection, then it's almost impossible not to fail. So, how do we get past that feeling? Wendell Berry talks about pride that lies awake in the night with its desire and its grief. And he says that to work alone at our tasks is to fail. We all have our tasks. We have our dreams. We have our work that supports us and sustains us with the basics of life. We have our hopes for our loved ones. We have our hopes for the world. We have our commitment to work on all of the things that are good tasks that we want to work on. But to work on them alone is to fail. Instead, what's really important is to work on those things with others, and not to expect that each one of us is the only person who can solve that problem, or make that argument or bring that goodness to the world. There are people here in this room today who are working on the same tasks, who are loving with the same big hearts, who are there not just to work side by side with each of us, but who are also longing to be in relationship, longing to connect with others, longing to give and receive support, encouragement, hope from others. We can't be just here in this space, each in our own little cocoon, separated from one another. There's too much beauty for that. We need to be fully present to one another. We need to see each other's beautiful faces. So look around. I mean it, really. Look around. Look at the people you might know. Look around at the people you don't know. Look, I can see these faces, the light shining from them. Look how beautiful people are right here in this space. We are surrounded by people who care, people who love, people who shine. And if sometimes we stumble and fall, they are there to help us up. But we have to make it happen by reaching out and being fully present to engaging in those relationships. And that's what the elderly man on the train did. He was willing to reach out and be in relationship with someone who was scary and dangerous. And I'm inviting all of you to just start with reaching out to people who were wonderful and compassionate. So it's not that big a step. But the sense that the failure of the work, the risk that our dreams will fail, is on our own shoulders and only on our shoulders. That is false pride. And it's the source of fear, and it's the source of despair. And as Wendell Berry says, this despair is the awkwardest pride of all. Who wants to be proud in that way? So how we persevere in our self-liberation is a kind of a change of stance in a way. We can notice, that we're feeling fear and pride and despair. We can notice that we're taking it all on our own shoulders. There's a lot of weight that we might be carrying around again and again all day long, all night long as we wake up and worry. And this burden, it can get pretty heavy and start to really weigh us down. So why don't we find some method to let go, to put the burden down? The Buddhist story of the man and the tiger. Those were real tigers in that story. Most of us don't actually deal with real tigers. We deal with metaphorical tigers, right? And some of them are tigers of our own making through our own fear and our own false pride. But the story tells us about how important it is to take a moment, stop worrying about the tigers, and notice how beautiful the world is. Notice how delicious the strawberries taste. Notice the beautiful faces of people around us who are longing to be friends, to be in relationship, to help to carry the load. We've got to be fully present to life. And it seems to me that we can do all the intellectualizing in the world about letting go of fear and despair and false pride. But unless we are really open to being fully present to others, we never put our burden down. We've got to be fully present to life. See the beauty of the strawberry and taste its flavor dissolving in our mouths. So, as we take up this stance, it's the stance of the learner. It's the change from I am the only bulwark between disaster and the world, and change it to I am here joyfully in relationship with others. Self-liberation really means allowing ourselves the joy of doing the tasks we love in relationship with others. And learning, knowing that we can learn from those teachers who are out there if we are willing to learn. The teachings of the unsuspected teachers belong to the task and are its hope. The love and the work of friends and lovers belong to the task and are its health. Rest and rejoicing belong to the task and are its grace. Not by your will is the house carried through the night. Not by your will. The house is carried by your love, by your gifts, by your shining selves, by your presence, nurturing and supporting and nurtured and supported. Together, we find hope and health and grace, and we let ourselves be free. Keep the channel open.